speaking of artists that aren't too big, that we have beef with, we've had beef with an artist already. What's his name? Ted Nugent?
Oh, what because it's Nugent?
Man's name. If you see this, fuck you. He's already beefing with our kind.
Yeah, he's right. Come here. Well, no, literally first and definitely. But my Spotify rap is, I'm gonna say it. It's JB Sax's number one. For those of you, you know the song for it came out in 2020. If the world was ending,
Yes, yeah.
I'm over, right? He wrote that with Julia Michaels. It was his ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
And I just think that's some shit I would go through. Is like I've never had any musically inclined ex-girlfriends. But if I did, or my one song that would go out and do numbers would be the one with her, and I'd have to live with it forever.
Hey, I'm Nikita.
And I'm Matteo.
And welcome to It's Not Daddy, It's Papa. It's our very first episode. We've tried recording this how many times now?
3 or 4.
3 or 4, but I think this is going to be the one that we like the best. Let's start by explaining a few things. I think that's like housekeeping. It's going to be our first thing on the agenda.
You might be wondering what It's Not Daddy, It's Papa means. To describe it briefly, we must draw the delineations between what a daddy is and what a papa is. Would you like to start by explaining a papa, and then I'll explain the daddy?
Yeah, actually, we put this out on like our social media pages, and we actually had a really good response. I really do like the response. You want me to read out the response?
By all means.
Or like parts of it? I'll just start by kind of explaining it. A papa is someone who is not super aggressive. I think that's the biggest factor is aggression between the two groups. We're going to group them into groups or camps. Papas are a lot less aggressive, a lot more kind. Bendable.
Positively, though.
Yeah. And respectful, I think. Yeah. Versus daddy is the kind of polar opposite. Very aggressive. I think aggression's a really big part of that as well.
It's basically just a way.
You're better at describing this, actually.
Well, it's basically just ways of conveying a point. If you are this concept of a daddy, then basically the way that you get your thoughts and ideas across is by force, and sort of by believing that nothing you say is wrong, and being very unbendable and not having the will to listen to others makes you this quote-unquote daddy. And I don't mean it in like a sexual or attractive way. I mean it in quite a negative way. You could be a positive one, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
This concept of a papa is somebody who sort of leads in a more nurturing way. You know, you could lead and you could be direct while also being gentle. So I would say that's the big difference. It's a matter of getting your point across either with aggression or by being gentle and passionate. Compassionate is, I think, a better word.
I'm gonna just like read something. I think like one of the people that commented this when we asked like, what do you think this means? Actually like said this really nicely. It says, well, daddy has a hyper masculine protector, Gen X rigidity, authoritarianism, strongman, performative machoism vibe, and papa is the direct rebuttal to that. It's more nurturing, warm, vulnerable, emotional depths, more of a Gen Z reimagining of leadership.
I love that. That's phenomenal.
Exactly what we're trying to hit.
And I think like the reason we're talking about this is because it's important to break down these perceptions of masculinity and how we could apply them in a world that so desperately needs a clarity on what is masculinity. And when you have these two different approaches, you know, looking at only papa versus daddy sort of does agree that any type of taking care of others. I won't say leading others, but you could define masculinity as taking care of those around you. And by redefining it in this papa way of saying, well, I'm going to be compassionate. I'm not going to take care of others by getting them by the scruffs in the back of their necks and dragging them to where they need to be. Instead, I'm going to, offer that warmth. I think that is the point that we were trying to get at here. So that brings us to the next question that I'm going to ask you. Mm-hmm. Why do you think the majority of men end up leading their lives in a daddy perspective as opposed to a papa perspective?
Okay. Before that, do we want to explain we got the specific term? No, we're keeping that as... Okay.
Yeah,
we're keeping that as...
You guys are going to sound later. For those of you who have been asking about the name, you guys are not getting what you want to say. Just wait.
Yeah, you'll be able to tell further later along, but it came out of a joke.
You'll learn it.
Oh,
you guys are going to learn that.
It came out of a joke. It's like, I guess the more we'll get to like hold space with these people.
Please hold space.
Please hold space for the name. It's the puppets that it will come to you eventually. I think they could figure it out their own, and I think we leave that up as a mystery. But okay, what was your question?
So my question is, why do you believe that, in your opinion? Because I would say it's a fact that most men stray towards this more daddy mindset, this papa mindset.
Yeah.
I have my answer as to why I know, because I think for the viewers, we both associate as papas. We're not aggressive people. We don't grab anybody by the scruff. We kind of are just very compassionate, as as much as you can be in trying in your everyday life.
Yeah.
But somebody who, I have my answer as to why, as somebody who's lived, I would say I've lived as both. Mm-hmm. Right now I am one, but you've known me for long enough to know I've lived as both. Why do you think most men end up on that daddy side of the spectrum as opposed to something more passionate?
Yeah. That's actually a really good question. I think part of it has to do with the way that we have created a like atmosphere of like, we are gonna listen to the loudest voice. We will follow the directions of the strongest man. And part of that like naturally came out of like, right, like when we used to like hunt and gather like a strongest guy like kind of gets it. But in a society that no longer has to do that, there's no need for it. But I think it's just like a leftover of like pre-industrial, like pre-modern society.
Right.
What do you think? I think you have a better answer to this.
I wanted to hear yours, not just for the sake of my own, but not what to say about it, because I think in my life, and not to get too open about 30 seconds in, okay, I think I've suffered the consequences of being compassionate. And I think as a man, you suffer the consequences of being compassionate. I'm sure you have too. You could touch us up on that.
I get a lot more about what you mean now that you're saying.
Yeah, so you feel free to, I just wanted to leave with that question. But you suffer the consequences of it. And like, we live in a world where there are certain things that you wouldn't say to a man who is on that daddy side at like 300 pounds and aggressive. It was like, there are things that you would respect him on that people wouldn't respect somebody like myself or like you. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's instilled in you from when you're young. You have, like a lot of houses, like a patriarchal, logically pronounce that 5 times fast.
Society.
You have, a lot of times this father figure, mother, children, or any man, even if it's a male teacher or whatever it is, that just asserts this onto you. It's just very assertive. And you kind of see them pave their way and get what they want out of that.
Yeah.
And I grew up being close to women in my life. I had an easier time making friends with them, and I've always been very close with my mom, and just I think that's a big part of it for who we could become as a person. But then you apply that to the world, thinking that compassion is instantly going to be returned. But if you do it as a young teenager, as a young adult, you realize it's not the case. There's very few people that are responding to it in a positive way, which is ironic because it's what we need the most.
Yeah, I think positivity is the number one, like, unifying factor.
But it gets such a poor reception after.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more things that we are, as a society, like, unified about than disjointed about. Which kind of brings me to, like, another topic, but I don't know. Do you want to still?
I do want to stay on this.
Okay. Stay on this for a second, but we'll get back to that. We are more united than divided.
We are, but I think we're not on the same page about what we want to see in each other. Mm-hmm. I think that causes the problem. So to use an example, when I was 14 years old, I had already become comfortable in this pop-up personnel. I lost it a couple years later because it can be rejected. It's marked down as feminine, which is nothing wrong with that. But there's an immediate association with gentle and feminine, which is just so wrong.
That's not that that's not entirely true. Most female, like most women that I know are more gentle, but that's not. It doesn't have to be that way.
No, you know what I'm saying. And I noticed that when I was 14 years old, I noticed a situation with a girl who had a choice between me and a more
Okay.
daddy person, right?
Yeah.
Just to be funny now and let's get a little overzealous with the topics. And the reason she was made, not to put words on other human beings, map them to try to analyze another human being's emotions, but she was drawn to me from a perspective. I am compassionate and forgiving of her wrongdoings. But the best you just pull up the name, we're not even gonna get it.
Yeah, the best part is that the name I have saved from my phone has the person.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was somebody, and listen,
What?
better human than most, I'll say. Like, you not the second. Like, really good. Nothing against this person. This is this daddy person. But somebody who had more of an aggressive personality than mine. Len was always very gentle, and I was also 14, so it's even like, more mellow than I am now. But I could tell that this girl was more drawn to him because of this assertive nature. And she even made a lot of comments about that. Like, he's just such a stronger force of a person, whereas she said to my face that, like, I could do whatever and you will forgive me. And to me, that's less attractive. And I think you could say that you don't externalize that, but you do. And I think a lot of compassionate men end up becoming radicalized right, which is also why we're here now. Part of the problem, you don't want men to be radicalized to the right. It's really a common thing that we're trying to avoid and break down the whys. But it's because being compassionate and left, to bring politics into it, left-leaning politics and compassion as a human is deemed as feminine and unattractive, whereas being strong and resilient, quote unquote resilient, is viewed as it's this thing of trying to be lovable. That's my 2 cents. I mean, probably closer to it.
Dollar
coin, yeah.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think it's like part of what we talked about is that like every single level the niche that you could think of is down that like all right like pipeline. I know like we talked about this extensively just personally, but like lifting weights, like what does that have to be like political, like all sorts of stuff. I mean, I can't think of a single trend like we talked about this outside of like queer media. I can't think of any like
most male hobbies and things that are associated with
hobbies, like
everything. Just anything that's associated with being secure in your gender is associated with this aggressive right-wing type of approach. And it's something I dealt with up until recently. Even now, recently, like I will say you're somebody who's been a little bit stood your ground in your character differently than I am over the past couple of years. But I'm somebody who, when I'm faced with, not that I'm an insecure, well, that's a whole other, not that I would define myself as an insecure person. Everybody is to an extent. But I would say I am confidently rooted in myself. However, there's so many times that I've been rooted with, oh, you are such a passive, gentle, like, man, I know a guy who's this
more macho.
Like, he's more macho and he's got this and he drives this and does that. And he would beat up this guy or do that. And I'm just like, well, my identity is not that aggression.
My identity doesn't have to match.
It doesn't have to match, but they do kind of force it down your throat. And we know a lot of people that have done this to both of us. So it's like,
absolutely.
You have to go alter identity or else you become toxically masculine.
And it's also just like you strip yourself away from a unique identity because everyone has the same very like macho masculine like persona. It's not even an identity because it's not real.
It's a complete,
like it's a persona more than an identity, because an identity, at least I think an identity to me is more true to oneself.
Yeah, it's a genuine,
it's a front. That's what it is.
And everybody has a front. In a way, being gentle could become a front too.
Yeah, there's not, it's not necessarily that one is positive or one is negative. I think we made a list earlier, and actually by the time this gets out, it'll be on social media. But there's negative people on both sides. There's positive people on both sides. There's the men on both sides. There's women on both sides. There's real characters. There's fictional characters on both sides. It doesn't matter. Like, it's just more of a grouping, delineational line between two people. It's not a drawn line that's like this is exactly who you are. And then it's also very bendable. When we were making that list, there are some that we completely disagreed on.
Yeah, it's subjective. And also, like, I will clarify too, there's nothing wrong with being a type of man. If that's who you are, and you are more aggressive in nature and it's just who you are, there's really nothing wrong with that. The point here is that we need to make space for people who aren't that way and not to change. Because as growing up, I've noticed so many men started out that way as gentle, and then they turned as complete assholes because of the way it's rejected by society. Primarily, I just think like a lot of people put on this front to be desired. That's just, why is it marketed as desirable to be aggressive and I'll say unkind? You know, why is that so marketed and desirable?
I mean, I think that, like, we did explain that, but that just like brings us back in the circle. But yeah, just the historical trends of like, it used to be that this was necessary for survival, and we've just kept this same trend throughout history. I think that's kind of what it is.
Right.
You want to jump on this other thing? We sidetracked off of it, but we talked about this idea that I think, at least in some aspects of our life, we are more united than we are divided.
Do you want to touch upon that for
I wanted to touch upon this just because I'm a little in a very specific instance that actually happened that we just got like breaking news about. Earlier, I mean, it's been 5 days since it happened. As of the time of recording, at 6:47 a.m. in the morning, United Healthcare CEO gets shot down. New York City, 3 bullets, instant death, and we've almost unanimously have rallied behind the killer. The murderer of this, like there's no way to say it without like the fact that like the person who did it committed a crime. Like,
you committed the crime,
right? And they, as of the time of recording, they have apprehended a suspect that, like, let's face it, is the guy. Like, well,
I feel like I kind of look like him. That's
for all our views. we confirm we're denied.
So just the lower half of it. Okay.
Maybe if you put on a mask. I don't have any right now.
Please
put it on. See what happens. Oh, that's a picture. Look-alike contest.
Come on, look at this angle.
We have to be famous. That's supposed to look-alike contest at one point in Washington Square Park.
Who would show up to my look-alike contest?
There's no one that looks like either of us. But like, also like so many. We look like other people.
I get compared. I'm not even gonna say it just because I don't want to spark controversy, because this is such hit or miss. I get compared to the same celebrity every day of my life, at least once a week.
Every so often, I get compared to the dude from Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy.
But that man is like half the size of you.
Yeah, I'm like, we don't look alike.
Also, he's like fucking.
Yeah, besides the fact that he's super short, I also just don't think that we look alike.
I can see it.
Like
I could really see it.
Could never see it, except there's just this one horrible photo of me in in a mall that like is clipped with another really horrible shot from Oppenheimer, and like we sort of look similar. It's mostly because I have the same glasses as he has in Oppenheimer. Like I look at like Cillian Murphy playing Oppenheimer. It's not Cillian Murphy.
I could see that you look like him.
I'm gonna beat him. Like the characters he plays, I feel like are cool. Like I've not seen people.
Well, they should have cast you as Oppenheimer.
I should have been.
That would have been their thing. But I get compared to the same people every day that I bump up to. I get Timothy Chalamet once a week. I'll just say it. It just pisses me off. That's why I don't want to say it. The reason it pisses me off is because I look nothing like him. It's literally just the jaw, and it's my nose from the front angle looks like his, but not even from the side. So it just gets me so frustrated. It's also that thing of like every man that's remotely gentle. Not to circle back too much. It's the same man.
Yeah.
Different dude. Like
that's the other thing with society is that like it just gets grouped up into one.
These stereotypes of just like nothing wrong with it. He's a cool guy. You know, there's worse things to be compared to. But I don't know if I really see it that much.
And it just as a quick sidebar, because we started talking about Timothy Chalamet, and I brought this up to you before, but I want to get it. I want to see if other people know about this. Timothy Chalamet has a sister. His sister's Pauline Chalamet, and she's in this show that I love called The Sex Lives of College Girls. She's also in the King of Staten Island movie, and she's apparently in the Minecraft movie that's coming out, according to Google, the internet. And every time we sit down and watch this show with my girlfriend, she's always like, he looks nothing like his sister. So I want to. Do you?
He's better looking than his sister.
Like, do you think that there's
What's
the
the
same?
She looks more like his mom. Not to see.
Do they have the same parents?
No.
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 Okay. Well, we gotta get viewers to confirm or deny this.
I wonder if it's
We can probably put up a picture, but if not, just comment it somewhere. Like, this is gonna be viewable on what? Spotify clips, YouTube, and then clicked up all across every single social media platform that we have. Which obviously is just Instagram with TikTok, but we're gonna pretend like it's more. Oh, we also have YouTube Shorts.
Do y'all care about YouTube Shorts?
Is YouTube Shorts like a thing?
Do better. Okay.
I believe that like we are more unified than we think, because almost unanimously I have seen support for the guy who shot. Not saying that it's justified to commit violence, but like everyone has unanimously rallied behind this man, and they've caught him. And like they're probably gonna put him on trial, but I can't imagine that going well, because you have a decently good-looking guy in front of a media circus that is a trial. With like a very clearly written manifesto, the something like bro knows what he's talking about. So I don't think that's gonna end well. But what do you think? I
do think it's interesting. I was thinking about the like not the class divide, but the political divide as like a result of this that came to mind. Because like you said, unanimous support for this man.
We haven't seen anyone
dissing him at all.
dissing him outside of the one.
Even the NYPD loves him.
Like, yeah,
They talk about him in an almost like sexual way. They're like, oh, and he did it perfectly. Perfect. The way he got away with it, amazing. I would let him do it too. Like, you know, it was phenomenal. It was hilarious the way they gassed him up. But
the only person that like doesn't fuck with him is the one who turned him in.
I was gonna say the guy who got shot himself, but
Brian. No, he's kind of rich Brian.
Rich Brian. So the thing is, right? Everybody is unanimously supporting him, and because of that, it has me thinking: we all want free healthcare, or at least affordable healthcare, right? And if everybody agrees on these things, then how do we come across a country that is so divided?
You see, I think part of it, like, right, I've been like obsessing over this stat because I think it was really interesting when I saw this. But there's a huge percentage of voters in New York City that voted for both Trump and AOC. And it's like, what the hell? Two completely different people. And I think AOC broke this down like great in one of her Instagram lives. I love her Instagram lives, by the way. She goes on Instagram Live and she was explaining this statistic. And she's like, a lot of people just want some complete change, like radical change, because they're like, if we voted for Kamala Harris, like it would have been like more or less the same. Granted, do I think that like if you're splitting your vote between like a super far right and a super far left person, it equals out? No, not at all. But it's interesting that like the thing that united these people on picking both AOC and Trump was the need for change. Does that make sense? They not anti-establishment, but like want something new. Like that's her explanation of why people voted for both her and Trump.
Right. Well, I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, I also think a lot of people don't know what they're voting for.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why you could vote for two things like AOC and because like I took a math test today and I looked right before I turned it in. So it was about voting math, and the answer I had given in part A of the question had contradicted point B because I don't understand math.
Yeah.
So
no, a lot of people don't understand.
One of the things that I put mathematically was in support of candidate D is the most successful.
Yeah.
Then I do another equation, also incorrect, and it was in support of candidate A. And I handed that in. And the reason for that is just a lack of knowledge on math.
Yeah.
At both candidates, A and D, were running neck and neck for the same thing.
Yeah.
Same amount of voters, which is not even true. Somebody good at math would have to look at my math test, which is impossible, but I could tell you just with the self-awareness of I screwed that up.
Yeah.
Somebody voting who has a lack of awareness of what they're voting for is also essentially picking candidate A and candidate B and candidate just for like, oh, he said this one thing on television. And because America is so expensive and I'm working every day to survive, I don't have time to get to become informed. So we're going to vote for the person who makes it easier. This is the thing. Like if you're too busy, keep making it as me, you don't even have time. You know, your boy mentions to you that Donald Trump's going to make shit less expensive.
So you want
just
us today.
you're working the lumber yard all day, and you put your ballot in. Oh, my boy mentioned that Donald Trump is the way to go. So you do it. You know what I'm saying? And that's how things get rooted in culture of like, yeah, no, essentially that's what it is. So
Yeah. And I can not to market ourselves, but speaking of, if you only have like 5 minutes, like you guys should subscribe to our newsletter, because every week
get yourselves
some
educated.
stuff.
Sign up every week. Get yourself some knowledge.
Every week you have like, it's like little breakdowns of stories. Our first one's gonna go out either tonight or tomorrow morning, but just like little breakdowns of stories, some headlines, some fun like memes or whatever we think is cool to include about the news and what's happening in life online, wherever, in any circles. But yeah, I think that's definitely part of the reason is like lack of information or lack of proper information, like correct information. But I do think there's also just this like, people want something different. People are so sick of the same thing.
Yeah.
And are looking for just like, who can change something? It's like I don't know if it's gonna be for the better or for the worse, but like at the moment, I'm not
content.
I'm not content with what's happening. So I just want like a complete radical recall. And that's kind of what both candidates are promising. It's just that they're promising it in completely different means versus like Trump and Kamala. Like Kamala is kind of like, it's going to be the same like it has been, but just like slightly better, versus Trump's, we're going to change everything.
Yeah.
It's like whether that...
While using the slogan, keep America great.
Make America great.
No, that was for 2016. For 20, when he ran again this time and the time before in 2020 and 2024, 2024. He has rebranded the slogan as "Keep America Great." I'm going to correct myself. It was only for 2020 because he had ran from 2016 to 2020 in office.
Yeah, and then it's Keep America.
It was "Keep America Great." The irony is that we left 2020 with a pandemic that killed African Americans. So
Too many,
horribly too many. And that's like the hilarious part. It's like, what part of America are we keeping great after this 4 years? Yeah. People will buy it.
What I never understood with that slogan is like, what time is he referring to? You know, like
Reagan knows America, I think, is what they look back.
That's what I'm assuming, right? But like, what actually, like, have we ever gotten a confirmation? Someone dropped this in the comments. It's more educated. Pivoting to a direct opposite of Donald Trump. You mentioned wanting to talk about Chappell Roan, and I know you wrote something.
Yes. So I want to talk about Chappell Roan as we're talking about leaders and forces in media, and just we already defined this daddy and papa concept as sort of something defines something else, and you attribute things to that title.
Yeah.
And I think something interesting about Chappell Roan is she was given this queer pop label. The way that David Bowie had, the way that Freddie Mercury had,
the way that Jojo Siwa invented, apparently.
Jojo Siwa, she invented everything. Well, we're going to ignore that Jojo Siwa reinvented gay pop.
Or invented. Not even reinvented.
I love that.
Speaking of reinvented, have you seen her new song, Iced Coffee?
Not willingly, but yes.
Yes. Yeah, she also got a tattoo. I saw it on TikTok the other day. She got a tattoo like right over here for all the viewers. That says CEO Gay Pop.
With the exception of the almighty Jojo Siwa.
No, I meant like, except for like the fact that like
she didn't accept that title.
She screwed it over for herself.
And what I find interesting is she didn't want this title. She sort of was just given this title of queer pop and rejected it with such vigor that she ended up landing in the throng of queer pop anyway. But the reason why this is like interesting to me is we had David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, David Bowie, also Freddie Mercury.
And there were other people. I don't know.
There was David Bowie.
I don't know if it's like pop, but like,
David Bowie was pop,
right? Like that's considered.
He was considered pop.
I don't ever can understand genres of music. It's really complicated to me.
David Bowie was pop up until the 90s. Mercury was also pop until the 90s.
Like, look, yeah, would classify them as like classic rock,
but they were pop when they were new.
Well, pop just
means it was popular.
Yeah. Pop just means it was popular. So.
Yeah, so now it's classic rock, but they used to be just queer pop. It wasn't even considered queer pop at the time. It was considered pop. But the thing is, like, does Chappell Roan hold a candle to David Bowie?
I don't think so. But also, like, in pivoting back, Chappell Roan just like completely screwed over everything. Like, I like her music. I really like her music. We both like her music. There's like,
It's not legal. Yeah.
there's videos of us like scream singing it in like parking lots. Like these videos exist.
They're out there.
They're out there on the internet, somewhere probably, and someone has them. I have to like camera roll, I think. But like we love Chappell Roan, but like no one asked for your opinion. So
On everything. Like she had to.
granted, this is like coming off really badly because we're giving our unsolicited opinions on the internet, but we're also not Chappell Roan. So like there's a difference. It's like we knew that Chappell Roan's music, like it's not political in nature, but like we know what your stances are on everything just by your music, right? Like you're also like very publicly like pro some things, against some things. Like you declined an invite to the White House's Pride event because of Palestine. Like there's definitely like we knew your stance on a few things. We didn't have to hear more, and you didn't have to do that whole thing. You explain this better about like the thinking that like her fans are harassing her. Have you ever seen a single Chappell Roan fan harass Chappell Roan?
That's the thing. You see Chappell Roan in the street. You say hi. The should go take to social media and say, "Oh my God,
Someone assaulted her.
oh no, that's the end of the world." And the thing is, right? If you are somebody like that, now this is where the debate. I'm gonna play both sides here.
Let's play devil's advocate. I feel like we're really good at this.
Because I sympathize with her really heavily. She was given this title as a sort of leader of young people, specifically queer young people, but just young people in general. And she never asked for this title. And we've talked about this before, but we're all given titles that we do not ask for. And sometimes the easiest way is to just push in all directions away from it and say, I didn't ask for this title. I don't want it. I'm not the queen of gay pop. And even if I am, don't go up to me and tell me I am. Don't do like it's this thing of I was given a title that I did not want, so get out of it.
Sometimes titles come with responsibilities, right? Like if you are given the title of, for example, like CEO, you have like you have to be running this company. You as this title of like titan of queer music or whatever the hell, king, queen of king music, not by they, them of queer music, like whatever it is, like whatever you choose to give this title to doesn't come with any responsibilities, you know? So the fact that like not only do you relinquish it very publicly and you create this mess of like a fake like it's not like you stir up this like quote unquote controversy. Like I mean, maybe I'm not in the proper circles of the internet to be able to see this. Like, there's definitely part of it that maybe it's happening and I'm just not seeing it. But like, come on, are we really to believe that like hundreds of thousands or whatever like bullshit number she gave, people were coming up on the streets and like harassing her? Like, your name is very publicly on the internet. You've never before stated it was like illegal to use your name in public. People use your name once and you like went off on it.
It's also just like there's been so many celebrities and a lot of them have to fight about the same thing. But like, do you see Olivia Rodrigo at Sabrina Carpenter lashing out about the way people speak to them in public? No, you really don't. So it begs the question, what is specific about Sabrina Carpenter? Not Sabrina Carpenter, Chappell Roan, excuse me. And I think it's just the fact that she does not wear that title with as much desire for the title that the rest of them do. And I could sympathize with that all day. You know, yes and no. Because it's just such a human thing of like, I was labeled as this, I don't want it. I wanted to make music. I didn't want to be your rocker. You know, I get it.
But part of it came from like you're making music for a very like I don't want to say very niche demographic, but like the demographic is sort of niche, right?
But she'll say she made the music out of a place of honesty without even thinking of demographic. Like these are experiences she had that she put on paper and sang.
Yeah, but these experiences are universal to a lot of other people.
Right.
You see where I'm coming at? I'm like she's labeled herself just through the type of content that she creates as like a patron saint of like gay people, of like queer women. So it's like, yes, these like you knew that this was a group that was lacking representation in media. You made these songs like not for them, but also like sort of for them. and then want to remove that like fan base. Like, I think it's a little bit irresponsible of like denying these fans this, you know.
Have you been given titles in your life that you did not, or been put under an umbrella that you necessarily did not want to be under?
I can't think of an example off the top of my head right now, but like most likely. But sometimes you just gotta like take it on the chin and wear it, because it's like what are you supposed to do? It's like, if we were gonna go and fight against every single little thing like that, like where do we draw the line? You know, your music is inherently political. Your music is like, your actions that you've done are inherently political. Like, as much as it sucks, like gay people are political. Like that's like it's inherently political. Which, like, not to say that's the right thing. I don't think it's the right thing. I think humans are humans, and it doesn't have to be a political thing. But it just, in the society we live in, it is. Which means like, and you're creating music for these certain people and that demographic. And I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like you kind of put it upon yourself.
Right.
There's a level like, she did it to herself that's like impossible to avoid. I don't know. What do you think? I said a lot, talked a lot.
I think what you said settled the topic of Chappell Roan. But I brought up Chappell Roan because I think she sets a lot of context for what we're going to talk about in general on this. Of just perceptions, reality, umbrella terms, grouping. Also, she's my favorite example of it. And it's just like, the reason why I asked you is, do you feel like you go under umbrella terms, is because when I bring up Chappell Roan, I'm thinking more of this idea of looking at something and saying, because it is A, it must be B, C, D, E. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's something I've struggled with in my life, just being like, because I'm A, I, B, C, D, E. That's why I bring up the Chappell Roan thing with both sympathy and a little bit of judgment, because we all live it. You know, we all do it. It's something that we all like deal with. It's just like, I was labeled as this.
Yeah.
I get called that, so I must be all of the above. You know?
No, I get what you mean, and I think like I don't think it's right, but it's like, it's the like era and time that we live in, and you kind of just gotta take it on that you're aware.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of just gotta be like, hey, this happened, I'm gonna do it and bear through it, or I just don't talk about it. Like, no one would have kept going with this if you didn't like make a whole thing out of it. And then she goes, the thing that I really dislike is you go out and you cancel all these shows, and you cancel,
And you don't release Subway.
Like,
And you don't release Subway. Like, come on.
she still hasn't released Give Her on streaming platforms. I really like that song. I know, really.
Chappell
like Cyclones.
So what is the best Chappell Roan song?
I thought Give Her was really good. I thought Give Her was really good. I thought it was a great episode of that stuff.
The outro of Subway, the play on words, she's got away. A in parentheses, either away or a space way, depending on how you take it, is the most phenomenal songwriting that we've seen.
Take it as a giver, whatever the fuck.
Since
What is her line?
George Michael wrote Last Christmas.
I don't know.
It's the greatest songwriting we've seen since George Michael.
I think there are better songs.
There are, but we're just exaggerating in the made of K-pop.
Speaking of K-pop, Spotify Wrapped came out, and I don't know what you got on your Spotify Wrapped, but I've seen mine. Obviously, what can we pull up?
Yeah, I had a lot of. Did I just lie to y'all? I don't know if it was Mickey. White man try not to say that he had Mickey on his Spotify Wrapped when he didn't. Challenge impossible.
Let's see. My top artists, I'm going to read them out. Okay, my top artists: number 1, Brenda Rap. Number 2, Chappell Roan. Like, I love her music. I do hear it. No, I don't hate her, but like, number 3, Bo Burnham. I love me some Bo Burnham. He has to like release something soon, please. Then flat.
I didn't like
Inside
at all.
I thought it was really good.
I think it was fitting for the time. What is it, 2020, 18?
Yeah, 2020 or early 2021.
Yeah, I thought it was fitting for the time. I didn't enjoy it at the time. I'm going to have to revisit it years later. I thought it was very corny, but I could be...
I think it's really, really good, like, sub-commentary, and some of those songs are just really clever. I think his genius is that they're so clever in, like, the songwriting and technicality, and I love that. I like songs with meaning behind them. And then I have Ben Platt. I Love Me, Ben Platt. And then I have Steven Sondheim, which I know you have a problem with.
I don't enjoy Sondheim from a musician's perspective. However, "Send in the Clowns" is one of my favorite songs, and he did write that.
Yes.
If we could get Frank Sinatra on this, this version is my favorite.
Yes, I love Send in the Clowns. I'm very happy that you've mentioned that song.
That's my favorite. So my Spotify rap, I don't know how you guys, if you guys would know a lot of these people. I'm actually going to tag him because he's not that big of an artist. Well, once I tag him, they'll take that personal. You're big to me. But JB Sachs.
Wait, I'm going to pause. I'm sorry. Speaking of artists that aren't too big, that we have beef with. We've had beef with an artist already. What's his name? Ted Nugent?
Oh, Ted Nugent.
Man's name.
If you see this, fuck you. He's already beefing with our town.
Yeah, he's already beefing. Literally first of nothing.
But my Spotify rap is, I'm going to say it. It's JB Sachs's number one. For those of you, do you know the song it came out in 2020? If the World Was Ending.
Yes.
Right. He wrote that with Julia Michaels, who's his ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
And I just think that's some shit I would go through. Is like I've never had any musically inclined ex-girlfriends, but if I did, my one song that would go out and do numbers would be the one with her, and I'd have to live with it forever. But JP Sachs, I saw you on October 4th. Loved you. I'm gonna tag you. You're probably gonna see. You saw him in person. He opened for John Mayer. So I saw you at Madison Square Garden. Phenomenal. And what I love about JP Sachs is he's incredibly interactive, and he's very similar to. I'm not going to say Chappell Roan. He does what Chappell could have done. He's ridiculously interactive with his fans. He has a group chat. I can't think of the app right now, but he literally has a group chat with his fans.
It's like Nikita.
I can't think of it right now. I'm not going to say the title. I'm not giving y'all credit.
Discord chat.
It's not Discord. No, but he's just incredibly interactive, and he's so human. Like he actually just posted today that he was on a flight with a woman who was abusing a grandmother who was like abusing the child that she was watching on the flight. He's like, how do I say something without over asserting myself? And I'm just like, you are the most human musician ever. Yeah. And he's very vocal about issues he cares about. So JP Sachs, you're my number one. Love you.
Love it.
I'd be sending you random shit on Instagram, and you'd be interacting with everybody else.
And not you.
So I'm going to tag you. Please watch this.
Okay.
Number 2 is John Mayer, who's the most controversial man of all time. But again, similar to me, if you get to know the person or get to try to understand what they're trying to say better, you're going to have less judgment. And that's why I love John Mayer. It's just like, he's not only an excellent guitarist, and I'm a musician myself. We'll learn how to play guitar by watching. Where the Light Is, which is, watch it if you haven't. It's a great show on YouTube. But yeah, judged by media really heavily. However, once you really break down any interview or anything that he was trying to say, he meant one thing, landed in the other direction, let him grow up a couple of years, and he came back around and circled. And he had this womanizer, misogynist reputation that I just don't think ever really applied to him. I just think you see a man who portrays himself in an artistic and confident way, and it's very easy to view as arrogant, and I just don't think that was his thing. Number 3 is Frank Ocean.
Wait, speaking of John Mayer, is it CBS or NBC? They need to let John Mayer and Andy Cohen drink for New Year's.
Oh,
whatever channel it is.
Well, John Mayer and Andy Cohen should do New Year's. They never have. I want them to do it.
He was on a New Year's for a second.
He was at a cat bar in Japan.
Yeah, for that segment. But
they should let Anderson Cooper and Anderson Cooper and
is it Andy Cohen?
And Andy Cohen have been doing New Year's together for years. But they can't. They've been getting too drunk, and now they can't. I think drinking is the whole point. If you don't want Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen to drink on New Year's,
Patty LaPone was on there, and they did shouts of Patty LaPone, and then they got in trouble with NBC, and it's
right.
Just let them live.
Let them live. But yeah, I would like to see John Mayer and Andy Cohen do it for sure. My number 3. Coolest French people. Again, I like seeing men that are actually friends. I think that's
they're both examples of papas.
John Mayer and Andy Cohen. Yeah.
Frank Ocean, you said.
Frank Ocean, who has not dropped an album since 2013, 16. I don't know. Love came out a long time ago. One of my favorite albums. So beautiful. He's alive. He went through the loss of his younger brother, which I believe. How do you create art after that? It's very hard to put any art out. So I'm simply again also he doesn't owe us art. That's the same thing as Chappell Roan. Sometimes you put something out there, and Frank Ocean's whole reputation is what show was it that he botched? He came out. It was a festival,
Coachella?
Yes, Frank Ocean's notorious Coachella performance that didn't go well. It was also very recently after the loss of his brother, and he doesn't owe y'all shit. Half you guys came just to see him, which I
But just like,
but at the same time, he was really suffering and it didn't come out good. That's how art is. It's not consistent.
at the same time, just don't buy
Tickets to one
tickets to a music festival if you're only going there for one person.
Right.
You know,
So,
at that point, buy a ticket to their show
exactly.
or something. Most of these artists don't perform solely at festivals. A lot of artists perform on shows, especially if you're living by a major city.
And yeah. And lastly, I had Fleetwood Mac.
Okay,
Which was this classic. And then the beef between Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks is some of the most entertaining stuff ever. Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks are an example of you'll never know who they were.
Yeah.
Even more for the coke. Like you'll never know what Fleetwood Mac would have been without drugs at Scandal. So it's really hard to judge either of them because they were 16 when they met each other.
Yeah.
How do you judge a relationship that you didn't grow up with? You know, so
Yeah.
big Fleetwood Mac fan.
I think Fleetwood Mac is really interesting. And speaking of Fleetwood Mac, because like the one thing that I've been like telling you about, and I don't think so. We need this live on air. We need this like confessional of like why you haven't talked about where we haven't done this yet. There's a show on Broadway currently that closes I think January 15th called Stereophonic, which has been attributed as like a Fleetwood Mac fan fiction.
Why did I not?
I've told you about this so many times. Bro has ignored me consistently about it.
Oh, wow.
So I had to call him out live because he had it on a Spotify round. This is an accusation.
I'd have that.
Shout out to my Stereophonic fan.
I had Fleetwood Mac, not Stereophonic. I'm just
Yeah, but they've only released like 3 songs from their amazing cast recording. But yeah, it's also like 3 hours long. But I've been wanting to see their show, but I like haven't wanted to go alone because it's so long. And I felt like you would have been perfect. And every time I mentioned it to you, I'd be left on red. I'd be left with like some weird speech or some weird like oh maybe sure, but never talk about it again. So I needed it live on air. I needed it live on air. So eventually on one of like on the Sunday
What's live on air now is we offering to go see with them. So that's there.
Yeah, but it closes on January 15th, so we got to find the time. I think it's January 15th. We got to find time to go do this because what's going to happen is that we're going to post it on like our Instagram and TikTok. And everyone's going to be like, what? And we're going to be like, come watch the first episode where you find out me asking you to go do this.
I swear to God, we're going to find time to go active.
We're going to find time to go.
We'll find the time to go.
We're going to buy tickets and everything. They're like kind of expensive, but like support local theater. So like, I go fuck. It's also not local. It's on Broadway. But like, it started out from a local theater.
Something about perceptions of your friends I wanted to discuss.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Okay. This has nothing to do with politics, social, anything. This is purely about your own personal relationships and that.
And
So you have your own perception of yourself, and then you have your friend's perception of you, and vice versa. And something I want to discuss is like when you're navigating young adulting, I don't know if it's you too, but there's that overbearing feeling of I don't got it.
Yeah.
I am going to go off the rails. I don't have it. I'm going to have to lose everything and try again. Whatever I have currently that I attribute to being successful at young adulting is probably finite. And I'm going to find myself at the bottom of the barrel of like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. You know what I'm saying? And I have to find new work, find new different, find new everything. Maybe start again with school, like, you know what I'm saying? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
With education, like all these different aspects of life where it's like, I have lost the plot completely. I'm the type of person where I constantly do look at myself as like, I don't got it. You know what I'm saying? I don't have it together. Or like, I've been missing the plot to an extent, or, you know, I'll look back at something I said 2-3 years ago or a situation I handled like I handled that poorly.
Yeah.
So the rest of the world saw it that way. And I didn't bounce back, so the rest of the world thought I didn't bounce back. Is that something you deal with, or do you have confidence in the way you're perceived?
No, absolutely. Like I do struggle with this in some aspects of my life. I made it like very thankful with the fact that like I found that like I really wanted to do theater and like specifically stage management and like backstage theater. So it's like I've not struggled with like the kind of what you were talking about with like job or school or stuff like that. But I do really empathize with what you said about like looking back on a situation and being like, oh, I handled that wrong. But every time I think about that, that's something that's like really big with me. Like I'll go through conversations whether it was like in person or like text messages or phone call, whatever the hell it was. And I'll sit there and like replay it in my mind over and over again. And I'll ask everyone for their advice about stuff like that. But a lot of the times it low-key doesn't matter because half the people are not thinking as deeply about this situation than you are. And I think that's one of those things where it's like, it definitely could be more of an issue if everyone looked at it so in depth. But because you are your own biggest critic and you're the only person that's really like sitting there and like dissecting word for word, it ends up being kind of like not important. So that's kind of been the thing that like allows me to be like, hey, it's gonna be okay, because I know that's not something that everyone else is doing and everyone else looking back at, you know?
Right. That makes sense. I think a big part of it for me too is just like I've tried on 100 different personalities in a matter of years. I'm back to personas, like the very beginning of this episode. We all try on like different versions of ourselves and try to see what works best. And different people do it more than others. I would say I do it more than you. But then that could also just be the very simple principle of I'm more aware of my own.
I think,
you know, it's like it's everybody, but we're aware of our own shape shifting more than others. So it's like, hard to help.
And I think there's like a level of like, it's not the worst thing, like code switching and stuff like that exists if you're gonna behave differently around one group of friends versus another, versus when you're at work, versus when you're at school, versus when you're like at home with your family, you know. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. Like, I think part of a life is kind of navigating those difficult situationships where it's like you're not necessarily gonna be yourself to, like, the word isn't to survive, but like the word is probably to thrive in environments you've got to kind of shake this.
Right.
I think that's really important. Just in society, like we need to present different facets of ourselves to different people. You cannot behave the same way you behave with your friends at work, and you cannot behave the same way at work with your friends, because then they're not gonna be your friends, you know. Like, So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think inherently it might actually be a good thing that humans have the capability to adapt.
I mean, part of it too is like you could look back. A lot of times we pick up on the things we did wrong.
Yeah.
You know, for like parents. And you could look back at the last 3 years of your life, or whatever amount of years of your life, and you could say, I could have handled that with more grace.
Indeed.
And you slowly pick, and I use the word grace because one of my favorite quotes is a Jeff Buckley quote. I don't remember the context. I just remember he said, everything you do it with grace. It doesn't matter if you're losing, falling, I'm paraphrasing, but like whatever it is you're doing, if you do it with grace, you'll come out okay. And was the point what he was trying to say. And something that I've noticed is like I've gone through the past couple of years, and there's so many things I'm like, I could have done it with more grace. There's a lot of things I did with anger, with haste, with, you know, vitriol. And it's just like, if I had handled it with a little bit more grace, I could look back and say I did this better. You know what I'm saying? And we as people, I think, and not us in specific, just humans, yes, like you tend to pick up your moments that were lacking grace, walk away with them, and then leave 4 years of your life, or whatever the amount of years, and say, I did it with lack of grace. And that's hard.
To be fair, I don't want to like put us up on a pedestal above other people, but I think like we, after like spending time with other people or whatever, love to recap situations, and like we will constantly talk about things that have happened and like how we could have fixed it, or like did we do something wrong or whatever. Like I think that's also something that is kind of unique to us. I don't really see many people doing that.
Yeah.
I actually don't see many men doing that. I think that comes back to this idea to kind of wrap up everything, actually, because we're at like the 55-minute mark or so. Kind of this idea of because of the fact that we are papas, I feel like that's a trait kind of inherent to that subspecies, subgenre, subcategory.
Genre, man, yeah.
I think that's kind of more unique to us than like society as a whole. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree, and I think because of the fact that that's who I am, and that's who I find. I mean, as I get older, I find more value in myself, because there's always a man that could do something better, right? But nobody could be authentically. It's so corny, but nobody could be authentically you as you could be you.
Yeah.
So like, what do I bring as an individual? It's authenticity and just being a little bit gentle. You know what I'm saying? That's enough for me to be content, while also holding my values. I think that's something that makes me me. and I look back on it, like, because of the fact that that's who I am, it puts even more pressure to be graceful. And I think, like, I look back on people that I've known and lost and stuff like that. Not to be overly dramatic, I just think that's human. You know what I'm saying? People find consolidation in that, but it's like, I have so many moments that I'm like, I could have been more graceful, or something could have been left alone, where I had to go back to the point of origin and rub around what was wrong and just do that. And I think something that I walk around with as I'm older is this thing of like, anybody who knew me then and doesn't know me now looks at me as a mess. You know what I'm saying? It's like a mess that was lacking grace. You would have to follow me through the whole thing to see that now there's a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, even if you had known me that long, you've seen me in points that were lacking grace. So it's like, you sort of feel like your perception is always a little bit like
messed up.
Yeah.
No, I get what you mean. I think part of that also just goes back to like having a strong support system of like family, like close group of like people. Because what I found like in growing up is that it is a lot better to have a smaller, closer knit group of people than this like wide array of people who usually genuinely don't actually like give a fuck about you, you know?
No,
and I think we both experienced that just simply by knowing so many people. I think collectively, like me and you know, like a billion people, like all over New York City.
it's a little depressing because it's like we both know so many people, but out of that, so many. Who could you call?
Yeah,
Who could you call, right? If you needed something, who out of those billion would you call?
it was like maybe two. Maybe. Even that's
about two,
a little bit, like maybe two, possibly three. That like don't count my immediate family. Like that's about it.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit crazy to think about.
Yeah, I guess to finish it off, I think the main point of this was perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you are versus what people look at you, what umbrellas you're put under, how that affects our politics and how we judge others. And I think at the end of the day, you know who you are, and I think it's important to figure out what other people are under those umbrellas. And the part that I guess we'll touch upon more next time because we're a little short on time is how do you shape yourself from your own perceptions that others have made of you, and how do you know which ones are true? You can go down a rabbit hole, but I think that's what I think we should leave y'all to think about.
But yeah, I think this was actually a really great way for people to kind of understand who we are and kind of get to know us a little bit more before we start talking about stuff that so they get kind of a basis
More
of who
specific.
we are.
This is essentially who we. This is very genuine conversation between the two of us. And
Yeah.
you know.
This is our kind of intro. Go check us out on social platforms. We have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Go subscribe to our newsletter. Follow us on all of these platforms. Drop a comment below, whatever you want us to talk about. We read everything between the two of us. Yeah, so make us cry, whatever, harass us.
I already kind of want to, but give us more to work with. Give us more to work with. I have time to cry at your comments, so please, let's get them liberal tears rolling.
Yeah, yeah, we will expand more on liberal tears, but for now, this is a patent pending idea, so y'all aren't gonna get to hear about this at the moment.
Alrighty.
But alrighty, see y'all. Bye-bye. Like, follow, subscribe.